How many games will the Miami Dolphins win in 2024? What's going on, Dolphins fans? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL record prediction video. If you don't know, I'm doing one of these, a schedule breakdown, game-by-game picks for all 32 NFL teams, so don't forget to subscribe. Spike the like button. And let me know in the comments your opinion on the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Will they be number one in the AFC East this year? Let me know in the comment section below. And let's have some fun picking these games for the Dolphins. A schedule that, I have to be honest, really tough. Especially with this division. The turnover for Miami. Will they remain a playoff team? Will they improve? Or will they regress? Let's go over it and talk about it. The Miami Dolphins begin the season at home. Nice. Versus the Jacksonville Jags, a battle of Florida. The Jags will be used to that warm weather of Miami. It won't be too humid. It won't be too hot. It won't be too much for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. But what could be too much is the Miami skill. The game plan of Mike McDaniel, having a full offseason to assess this Jacksonville defense. Their weaknesses, their strengths, and although they're going through a scheme change, I still feel Miami will have a good game plan for how to attack and score points, especially at home. What I'm worried about early this season for Miami is the health of their defense, the health of their pass rush, those two edge rushers, Chubb, Phillips, how healthy will they be? What will their defense really look like? What will the offensive line really look like? Those are worries throughout the entirety of the season, but especially early in the season with, of course, Christian Wilkins leaving, Hunt leaving, Williams leaving. There are some big-time losses, Davis included, and then obviously Phillips and Chubb possibly being removed from the lineup early. They're going to have to really rely on the skill talent, the speed, the secondary, the coaching of the Dolphins to win these games. I do believe that they should win this game in a close one at home against Jacksonville. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost this game because Jacksonville's a pretty good team as well, but at home, two even teams, I feel like with pretty even flaws, almost in the same areas of their rosters. I think I got to lean towards Miami's talent, their skill at wide receiver, their offensive explosiveness early in this season to get that game. Week 2, they play the Bills in Miami. This is one I've flip-flopped on constantly. I started with the Bills going to win this game. Now I'm back to Miami's going to win this game. It's Thursday night. It's in Miami. It's going to be absolutely exciting, a great atmosphere. Miami, obviously the heat is still going to be there, although it's a night game, so not maybe as prevalent for a team like Buffalo that might not be used to those temperatures, but it's still early in the season, and it could really play a factor for Buffalo. Miami and Buffalo seems to go back and forth with their wins and their losses, although the Bills have typically beaten the Dolphins. I lean towards Miami, although, again, the defense and the strength of the defense in terms of the health of the defense could be a major factor in why they may lose this game. But I think a bigger reason is I think they'll have more chemistry on offense. I can count on Tua with Tyreek, with Jalen Waddle, with the addition of OBJ, with Jonnu Smith added, with Raheem Mostert, with the plethora of running backs, with Mike McDaniel calling plays, with the new secondary look to Buffalo, with the new look at receiver for Buffalo. There might just be some areas of the Bills where Miami could take advantage, and maybe Josh Allen doesn't have his absolute peak performance because he doesn't know who to throw to yet. Like, he doesn't know who his guy is yet, or his guys. So, in a way, it could be a Mahomes Chiefs last year type thing for the Bills this year. So I think Miami wins that game barely. Seahawks in Seattle, I think the Seahawks win this game. I'm just a huge proponent of Seattle, and Seattle is really tough. It's really loud, and I think a team like Miami, where their weaknesses are at the line of scrimmage, That's really tough to go to Seattle and win, especially if their pass rush isn't at 100% and affecting Geno Smith. Metcalf, Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker running the ball and balancing it out. Geno's pretty good when he's got a clean pocket. And on the other side, Miami's offensive line on the road for the first time in the year. That offensive line does not look pretty on paper. So I've got to go with Seattle. Mike McDonald's defense is definitely going to be ready for the challenge. Week 4, Tennessee at the Dolphins. This is a revenge spot for the Dolphins off of last year, where they lost this game in Miami on a Monday night against Will Levis, who had pretty much the game of his career so far. One last gasp for Mike Vrabel last year, and D-Hop was unbelievable. I think Miami gets revenge for that one. I think they picked this one up. And although Tennessee is maybe a little sneaky, good in the secondary, good at receiver, I think Miami at home in a prime time, they should be able to take care of that game. New England Patriots in New England, that's obviously my team. Right now, I want to say New England will beat the Dolphins once, but honestly, I haven't really seen it. So unless Drake May turns the tide, I'm not even sure he'll be playing though. And obviously the Dolphins know Jacoby Brissett to a certain degree. I would take Miami in the first game. I think where it could be tricky might be the second game. If Drake May is playing, I'm not sure when he's going to end up getting in for the Patriots. And the Patriots defense, obviously great. Now, Miami is lucky that they don't play New England in New England later in the year. It's obviously better for them if it's early in the year because of the weather. But yeah, I think Miami gets a little lucky there. Then they go into the bye, starting the season pretty well, as typical for them. They play the Colts in Indianapolis. This is a challenging game. I think the Colts could definitely win this game. This is a back and forth one. I'm going to leave this one alone right now. I think Indy is tough, but the Dome could actually play into Miami's hands. But the Colts, the reason I think that's tough for them is the mobility of Richardson, the playmaking ability of Richardson, and the toughness of the Colts. They're really good on the D-line, and they're really good on the O-line, and they can run the ball. So that's kind of the area I'm a little bit... Steichen's a really good coach, too. I think they'll beat the Cardinals in a shootout at home against Kyler and Marvin Harrison. Week 9, they play in Buffalo. I think they'll lose to Buffalo in Buffalo. They'll split with the Bills. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They typically do that. If not, they lose both. Allen is not going to lose both. Week 10, they play the Rams in LA. So it's after they play the Bills. This is a really tough spot. After they play the Bills, they've got to go from the East Coast to the West Coast to play Stafford, McVay, a guy that's obviously familiar with McDaniel. I think that in LA Monday night, that's the Rams. Las Vegas in Miami. I think this could be a challenging game for the Raiders, or for the Dolphins, I should say. But I think this should be a Dolphin win. With the Raiders' secondary and the middle of their field being potentially the area of weakness for the Raiders' defense, I think that's where Miami can expose them. And then I'm just not sure the Raiders have a good quarterback to go to Miami and to outgun Tua and that offense. Week 12, like I said, I think they'll sweep the Patriots at home. The Patriots never do well in Miami, especially later in the year in Miami. So I'm not even going to really think about that. So I've got the Dolphins winning that game. I think they're going to lose to Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, and the Packers in Green Bay. At this point in the year, that is like going to New England, right? Like that's like cold, bitter cold, snowy maybe. The Packers going to be able to run the ball with Josh Jacobs. They've got a plethora of weapons to choose from. They're really fast on offense, and they're really, really talented on defense. They've got a new look defensive coordinator. That's going to be interesting. And they've got a pretty underrated pass rush to get after Tua. So I think in Lambeau, that's a really tough game. Week 14, they play the Jets at home. I think they'll beat the Jets once. So I think they'll lose to the Jets in the final week of the season in New York, especially, again, if that is a cold, rainy, windy, snowy game. The Jets definitely have the edge in that type of game with their physicality and their defense. But I think Miami is inverse for the Jets and how on their field, it's a lot more advantageous for the Dolphins. The Dolphins have also played the Jets well as of late, so I wouldn't rule that out as well. Then you've got a really tough stretch to end the year, and this is just going to play into Miami and how their seasons always typically go with Tua and this era of Dolphins football. Like, look at their schedule to end the year. I mean, this is insane. After the Patriots game, they play the Packers in Green Bay on a short week. They play the Jets twice, once in New York. Late in the year, where it's ugly weather, they play the Texans, an uber-talented team in Houston, after playing a battle war physical contest against the Jets. Then they play the Niners. I know that game's in Miami, but that's Kyle Shanahan against, one of his mentees, right? A guy that he knows really well, and that's a tough matchup, and the Niners are way better at the line of scrimmage, so that's going to be a really hard game. Then they play Cleveland in Cleveland, who's like one of the best defenses in football, one of the fastest, best, most ferocious pass rushes in football, in an ugly city, ugly weather, great running game. Like, unless Deshaun sucks, that's going to be a hard game to win. So really, when you look at the end of this calendar, like, I have them at 8-5 right now. But I mean, I think these games are all losses. Like, honestly, maybe they could beat the Niners at home, but the Niners are a West Coast team that, yes, has to go East Coast, but it's not like they're not used to warm weather. Also, like, that coaching familiarity, as well as the Niners just being better, like, the pass rush of the Niners could really give the Dolphins issues. So I think the Niners win. I think the Texans win. For similar, D'Amico, again, like, another guy that McDaniel knows, but he knows McDaniel. And then I just think the Texans are better, and they're at home. And then Cleveland, like, really tough matchup in Cleveland. So, like, that is just a nightmare end of the season. Maybe they win one of those games that I'm not giving them credit for. But, man, that is hard, right? Like, I have them at 8-8 here, and I think this Colts game is really the one where maybe they go 9-8, maybe they go 8-9. That's kind of how I see it. I lean Colts, but it's after their bye week, so maybe I give it to Miami. So I'm gonna go Miami because it's after their bye week. I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to the Dolphins here. Although, I mean, 9-8 might be a little too high based on how I feel about Miami this year. Like, 8-9 might be more realistic. So, I mean, by the end of August, it's going to be tough. I don't think the Dolphins are as good as last year. I think their offensive line is flawed. Their defensive line is flawed. I think that the depth is certainly questionable. They've got a lot of good stuff. I like some of their additions in the secondary. Kendall Fuller, I think they've done a decent job recouping, the linebacker position, trying to replenish certain skill positions. But I think there are a lot of flash and not a lot of toughness, not a lot of physicality. And it makes it really hard for them to play and win in December against these teams like Green Bay, Houston, New York, Cleveland, the Niners. That's a really tough schedule. So yeah, 9-8, 8-9. I think max 11 and 10 or 11 wins. Low end is 7. Depends on Tua's health, but I think 9-8 is about right. So that's where I'm gonna land with the Dolphins. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know that Dolphins fans may not like it and call me a hater or whatever. I honestly don't really hate the Dolphins. It just seems to be my difference in opinion from others with this team. And more often than not, I've been pretty right about Miami. So we'll see how it goes. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch, and we'll see you in the next one. The rest of the AFC East, check out those record predictions. Patriots, Bills, and Jets. Peace.